in the NHC, this is what it is right here. This is awesome.
There are going to be prices come in. This room is going to be nuts tomorrow.
These players are unbelievable. This is your chance to be in the spotlight.
When all 8 tracks are in play, there's going to be bombs dropping left and right. There's going to be screaming and yelling.
Hawthorne is probably the best value out there for cash tournament play.
If you're serious about contests and you want to experience the NHC, you have to find a way to get to Hawthorne as many times as you can. You absolutely have to. The reason I think the Hawthorne contests are the best value in contests, there's no entry fee. Hawthorne is giving away seats. You have to play in those events because, you know, we all know what the cost of an online NHC seat is.
Got some free entries, come out to Hawthorne, so I made my first trip and had a great time.
If you're playing contests, Hawthorne is a great spot to be. You know, there's no takeout of the contest. So it's a great place for horse players to either qualify here or play in some live money contests.
And good afternoon, racing fans. Welcome to Hawthorne Racecourse for a Thursday afternoon of thoroughbred action. Jim Miller and Emily Gullikson up here in our studio today. And Emily, it is a bright, sunshiny day here at Hawthorne. The fields weren't huge, but there's only a couple of scratches on the card, so not too bad overall. Good competitive day of racing yesterday, but I'll tell you, you just saw the commercials for the NHC. An exciting tournament coming up this Sunday, the Horse Players Invitational. It's an awesome field assembled, too.
It really is. 56, and then we're going to add 3 more from the qualifiers from the Saturday one-day tournament. So there's still possibility for everybody out there to get involved. The Saturday tournament, it's a $500 buy-in, and again, lots of prizes, including 3 spots in the Hawthorne Invitational. But you mentioned the field, 56 players, all quality. We watched a commercial, and it's a who's who. Pretty much every shot is somebody that's going to be coming out and playing, and I know people are getting excited. I am. I'm doing my research and getting ready for the show.
It's funny when you're looking at these guys and you say, okay, well, this guy is a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge winner. This is a Pegasus winner, an NHC champ, an NHC Tour champ. I mean, these are guys that are all really good players coming together. They're going to play a $2,500 bankroll. There's mandatory races. There's optional races as well. It's going to end with a race on the turf course here at Hawthorne for the contest. But you're going to be busy all day long. Ed DeRose is coming into town to help you out because not only are you going to be looking at races, you're going to be running all over the room trying to find who's making the moves and kind of what they're doing with that bankroll. Last year we saw everybody kind of just hung around that starting point for a while and nobody made that big move. I'm expecting with this field, somebody's just going to have a huge day though.
I think so too, and I think adding the other optional races is really going to mix things up a little bit. And yeah, last year, I mean, the scores were lower, so I think that kind of played into it a little bit. But yeah, I think the added optionals, the time, we have the seasonal change, you know, everything's just a little bit different, and that just makes a difference. We'll see, and then we're going to go through today's card. We'll talk about the Hawthorne Derby, which could be an optional race for some people to play. And yeah, looking forward to it and doing a little bit more different. I was doing some, like I said, I was doing some research, watching last year what I wanted to do different, getting feedback from social media, like what do people want to see, you know? I mean, again, part of this is we're creating this show to gain more interest in the game, right? And get people interested about tournaments. So it's like, what do you guys want to see? Like, what do you want to watch, you know? And that's me as a content creator, what I want to bring.
And what I like seeing is the strategy, what people do going into races before, how they may shift throughout the course of a day based on if something doesn't work out the way they want or based on how something does, if it does work out the way they want. Because say you hit huge with a couple optionals early and that mandatory race, and all of a sudden you're sitting there around 10 grand and nobody's within 5,000 of you. Do you back off or do you just go for it to put it away? So I'll be curious to see because there's NHC seats on the line, Pegasus Challenge, there's a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. There's so many different options out there. It's a cool contest. It's worthy of this field, though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, there's another $1 million bonus to go to the NHC. So there's a lot of incentives for the players. And I think this being an invitational, I don't really like to get away from like the bragging rights aspect, but I think having this field, kind of knowing who the people are, everybody's invited in, I think there is some of that. And then there's obviously the competition local. You know, when we talked to Frank when I did the interview, and he's like, I just wanted somebody from Chicago. You know, so there's a little bit of that going on too.
And it is, but it's very cool. It's going to be a great location out of Crestwood. You're going to have so much going on. As always, check into the Hawthorne YouTube channel or Horse Racing Nation, and you can find all of it for the live stream taking place on Sunday. May even carry a little bit later, maybe a little bit past 5 o'clock for race number 7, but that will be the final race of the Hawthorne Invitational with the live stream on Sunday. All right, you mentioned the Hawthorne Derby. It goes as race number 5 on Sunday, and it was one of those things that was kind of weird for the field because you look around and you kind of see, okay, it was maybe understandable why we didn't have a big field. Last night, Canterbury just had a $100,000 3-year-old race on the turf. They had 5 there. Monmouth has a $100,000 3-year-old race on the turf on Sunday. It's that time of year, so it's hard. So you see, there's only 6 in this spot. What makes it interesting, though, is you're going to have some that are just going to say, okay, I'm going to the Mike Maker horse, the horse that is running these stake races and really good on the inside, and the horse that's going to be the heavy favorite in here.
Like that little pun, by the way.
Yeah, really good. And then you look nearer the outside, and you get a horse like Act a Fool, who has the benefit of not racing on Lasix, and he can't run on Lasix in the Hawthorne Derby, but has never stepped foot on the turf. Or Out of Deductions, a horse that you and I talked about when it broke its maiden. It was ultra impressive. So I guess let's start with the one really good in here. Again, this one from the barn of trainer Mike Maker. Just the last 2 starts have been on Lasix. So early on in its career, this horse was racing without Lasix and actually raced just fine in those first 3 starts. I would say a deserving favorite. We'll just see how heavy a favoritism it goes with the one really good.
Yeah, I would say a deserving favorite. The Lasix factor kind of seems like a non-factor for the point that you mentioned out. He's run just as well on or off Lasix, so it's pretty neutral. I've kind of found that across the board. And his most recent starts, they've been an allowance company, but they've been competitive races. You had the Keeneland allowance coming off the 162-day layoff, and kind of knowing Maker, it's probably a race they were just looking to get the horse a race. Still ran a competitive speed figure, and then ran in that off-the-turf race on May 14th, which is worth a mention because not only was the 9 furlong distance, it was on the main track, and it was a pretty good effort for really good because he was wide up close to the pace, and then kind of lost some ground late, but again, he was on that fast pace, he was wide, and the winner of that race came back to win the Pegasus Stakes last weekend, Salute the Stars, and Salute the Stars was heavily bet down in that off-the-turf race from the 12-to-1 morning line. He was favored, so he's very well met. I take nothing away from really good last out. I think he's a deserving favorite. I think he's the horse to beat in the Hawthorne Derby.
Yeah, and the biggest question for him is going to be kind of what they do running style-wise. I think he probably does lay a little bit closer like he did in that last out just because of the lack of speed in here, but the one really good, definitely the horse to beat. I laid him as a 7-5 favorite. Now, the 5 horse is Act a Fool. This one from the barn of Larry Ravelli. This will be his 2nd Derby of the weekend because he has the Ohio Derby on Saturday with 2 fills there. Going to focus on that one at Thistledown as well. But Act a Fool, that first start out came with Lasix. That came on the poly. And you don't know if it was the Lasix, if it was the poly, the first start, whatever it was.
Extra wide trip, running against the flow. Yeah, he had everything against him.
Everything was against him there. But I'll tell you, he came over here to Hawthorne, and he has done everything right in each of those last 3 starts. Showed speed in all of them. One going away. I guess the biggest question for him will be how he handles the turf course.
Yeah, the surface, dealing with Larry Belly, very confident trainer, can train on the turf, the synthetic, obviously the main track. They've had intention to run him on the turf. We had that trainer scratch where they actually were able to get in that main track race on June 4th. My question really is, this is going to be just such a class test for him, that even though he has that speed and he has, as you said, he's been improving race to race, he's also had a lot of favorable factors in those wins. He was dominant breaking his maiden here, kind of stood out over the field that day. And then I think he caught a bit of the track profile back on April 9th where he was lone, had some trouble at the start and was able to get that clear lead. And then he was able to make a very easy lead, another lone flow trip last out. So I think he's going to find a little bit more pressure in here and just a little bit more class of this field.
And the big question for him is going to be if anybody provides him company up there on the front end. He's going to take action, though, off those last 3 races. But then there's the 6 Out of Deductions, who could be the sleeper in this race. This one from the barn of trainer Chris Block. Orlando Mojica back in the saddle again today. But I'll tell you, when this horse ran back on May the 21st, you and I both said it was an ultra impressive race because the horse had an outside draw that day, settled back. When the horse took off in the lane, it definitely took off, just kind of ran away with that field. I tend to wonder if the horse can step up a little bit off that event.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think his form was validated a little bit when all choked up, came back to win, break his maiden, and did so with a strong effort in his next start. So I think if there's more upside without a deductions, they were probably looking towards this spot and having that foundation on the turf. But kind of the same thing, they're still going to get a little bit of a class test with the one horse in the field, really good. But other than that, I mean, there's no knocks at this point.
Yeah, and then we'll put up the remainder of the field for the race because you have the same trainer for horses 2, 3, and 4 in here. It's Manny Perez for Glockenberg LLC. Now, Glockenberg's had a very good meet. I believe they're our leading owner. Manny's had himself a very good meet. I had a hard time trying to figure out what I wanted to do odds-wise here because Wolf Hunter, that last start, wasn't a bad race on the turf. Russian Hammer ran on the turf in the last out, but the race 2-back was a really good sprint. And the Money Agent is lightly raced, but it wasn't a terrible race in the all-choked-up race. I don't know class-wise if they can contend with the rest of the field, but it wouldn't surprise me if maybe one of these jumps up underneath and runs a decent race to maybe get into the top 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Manny's a great sport running 3 horses in here, and I think, the way that he sends out horses, he's confident and takes chances and will put his horses in there and give them their best chance to win. And if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. And you love that from trainers and love that sportsmanship. I think Russian Hammer will be out there early, kind of pushing the pace. That's how he broke his maiden, and that was that sprint race. And then it was actually a better than looked race in that May 28th allowance. That was a sneaky good effort, making a move through traffic. Just speed figure wise, a little bit softer. You talk about Wolf Hunter and Money Agent. They're still both maidens. They're coming out of that same June 8th common race. Wolf Hunter, I think, was a little bit more fancied of the 2 on the day, but Money Agent caught my eye. Just in the paddock, I thought he made a very positive physical appearance. He broke slow. He showed run, all things considered, and I think there's more upside. So looking at this race, recognizing that Really Good is a legitimate favorite in here. Active Fool is probably one I'm going to try to get out of there just because I like a favorite, try to get a little bit creative. Money Agent's the one I'm going to throw in there, and then out of deduction. So at least that's like the one shot, but yeah, I think it's a good race. Sometimes those good races come up even with compact fields.
Well, and you even saw that race over at Canterbury last night. You had a little bit of an upset there, and you've seen some of the races, even with smaller fields, they get bunched up, and then it becomes a rider's race. So when you turn into a lane, be curious to see how things unfold. But that goes as race number 5 on Sunday, the Hawthorne Derby. All right, let's look at today's card here as we're 22 minutes to post. Slightly shortened post parades today due to the warmer weather. So we had that yesterday. We kind of backed off the time that the horses were out on the track just because it is a little bit warmer outside. But race number 1 goes a mile and 70 yards, $15,000 maidens. A reminder, 12% takeout on win, play, show wagers here at Hawthorne on each and every race. That's the lowest in the country. Pick 5, pick 4, 15% takeout. And in the first, Emily, $15,000 maidens for this race. Izzy's Monster, the 5, currently sits at even money. I tend to think that's probably the horse to beat in here, too.
I think so. I think it's kind of legitimate. Didn't have any issues with the grass, but the distance and the class change is the big difference today. So seems to have that edge. Looks like a router. Showed those visuals back in October at the special weight level. She returns to make her second start for the maiden claiming tag, so in the right spot. But I'm looking over and like cheating, looking at your notes over there, and I see that you have her picked second.
I do. I went to Pretty and Prado here, and it's just kind of a stab. I actually picked Pretty and Prado in that last out, thinking the horse was going to make the lead on the turf. And the horse didn't, and the day was over, and the horse ended up finishing 5th out of that field of 10. That's where the horse races at its best. Now, 10 starts, I don't like the fact that you win this from 10 starts, but you see some of those races where you got away in good order, showed that speed, and was able to take them the whole way around, and that's really the only way that this horse can win in here. Try to go out there and clear from the outside, see if you can make the top, maybe catch a breather for that second quarter and try to kick away late. I was just searching for a little bit more of a price because I figured Izzy Monster would take a lot of action, and the horse is Pretty and Prado right now, 3-1 in the opener. So see how things unfold in the first. All right, race number 2 goes about 7.5 furlongs on the firm turf, $20,000 claimer. Starts early, pick 4 wagering. Field of 7 in this spot, Emily. And let's start with the 3, a Landmark Deal. This was a horse that just won for 20 in that last out, and actually 9-2 was a great price on the horse that day. That was going a little bit shorter, so they stretch out again here.
Yeah, the 9-2 when that horse won, and we both commented on it, and we're like, wow, that was a crazy price for that horse. And I kind of thought that day the horse would probably need a race, even recognizing sometimes those two things aren't the same, right? You can say there's still an overlay and then the horse still needing a race and maybe not at their best. So keeping that in mind, I think Landmark Deal is in the right spot today. Getting the added ground, getting that foundation under the belt, even though they have the win, seems legitimate in here. I feel a little chalky early on, but I thought the horse made sense. If I was trying to get creative anywhere, I was going to go with Lavender Earl just with some back numbers. Do you have them?
I have them third,
Okay, have them in the mix, if you're looking at optics plot, there's nothing that stands out. But when you're looking at his running lines, there's just a little bit more than meets the eye in there. And I think he could be sitting on a top effort in this field.
Yeah, he wouldn't surprise me by any means either. I think he could be the one that tries to go out there and get away in good order. We saw 2 horses almost steal races on the front end yesterday. Actually, all 3 almost. The last one did, the DeVito horse. But the first 2, I know you had a Childers horse that almost did. Then you had one other horse that almost stole it. Oh, the Be My Bestie for Ravelli.
And Be My Bestie, and then the first race, Wonderful.
Oh, that's right. She's wonderful.
Yeah,
almost stole it going to 7.5 too. So speed was there and kind of held all right throughout the course of the day. So if Lavender Earl can get away in good order, maybe can hang around much of the way there in race number 2. Now the 3rd race on the card, I think this is a good race. These are the races that are kind of tough to make because it's younger 3-year-olds and you're getting to horses that have won multiple races now, and that's what you have to start to look to. All these horses have broken their maiden, so you're trying to find more females for non-winners of 2 levels. So you get the field of 5 in here. Can't Believe It is the horse that's going to take a lot of action in the spot, but you have 2 from Ravelli. Magnamasa's run pretty good. I think this is a tougher race than maybe just sticking with just Can't Believe It, but the horse would probably be a deserving favorite.
Yeah, I mean, just number-wise kind of stands out in this group, so is the most established runner from that standpoint and just takes a move forward from all the others in the field, including the 2 Ravelli runners, number 3, Move It Baby, as well as number 5, Specializing, trying to split that pair. I gave the slight edge to Specializing, just think has a little bit more upside, especially coming back from that April 2nd race where they had to duel against the flow. I think there's a little bit more upside and could show some early speed in here. But if they do bunch up, even Backstage Baby could, probably not on the faster side, but one underneath, that's probably going to be the longest price in the field. But Can't Believe It, it's hard for me to knock just when you've got kind of the fastest horse, right?
Yep. And you have the fastest horse. You're coming from a good barn that's had themselves a pretty good meet. A lot of Oaklawn runners running really well here too. I'm with you. I think Can't Believe It will be tough there in race number 3. All right, in the 4th, we go a mile and 70 yards. 12 5-claimers, non-winners of 3 lifetime. You get the field of 6 to line up in here. The 2 Ice Blast is going to take some action. The question is, what are we going to get out of this horse? Because we're looking for some of these horses from this barn to start to wake up a little bit. But this is a big class drop into the spot, and I think that might be kind of the determining factor for Ice Blast today.
Yeah, and it might be one of those things too where the barn is looking for a win, so they're kind of making some of those aggressive moves just to kind of get things going. And as far as Ice Blast, going into the allowance race back on June 4th made sense, coming in with the numbers that fit at that field, but had a complete excuse. The ride just compromised the horse right from the start, had those traffic well off the pace, buried down inside against the flow, so you can just draw like a complete line through that. And getting back to those other races certainly fit, but with the colder barn, I don't know, I tried to get creative in here, maybe too creative for my own good, especially knowing I have that excuse last out, and gave a look to Flying Samurai, another kind of older horse that has established form, as well as Mr. Charming, another one that's going to come back from that June 4th common race, and the pace should just be honest for those 2.
I picked Mr. Charming second in the spot, and actually Flying Samurai, you look to the race 2 back. Yes, it was last November, but that was a good effort around 2 turns. Showed a little bit of sneaky speed in there too. Ice Blast, hey, Actifool won that last start out. Actifool's in the Hawthorne Derby. Ice Blast is in for 12.5. So you look at kind of the horses heading in different directions there. Will take a lot of money. Maybe that's the one that does kickstart the barn for sure. All right, race number 5 goes a mile and a 16th on the turf. A maiden company here. Scratch the 2 Dreamfly. It's big for a couple of reasons. One, it takes that very heavy favorite out of the mix in there. 2, it really kind of changes things a little bit because now Patience Worth probably becomes the heavy favorite from the barn of Owen Hardy. And when they send horses, those horses do seem to run well.
They have been. I'm going to take a little bit of a stand against this one because I prefer the block runners, but just in terms of Patience Worth, again, wouldn't be a surprise. The shift to the turf is less of a concern, but it's more the finishing ability, just lacking that finish. When you have any type of knock at a short price, especially when you have some alternatives, it's worth taking a shot. And going off those 2 Chris Block runners, number 3, I'm Box Office, showed a really good run on debut, was pretty green, closed a lot of ground, and then even in that most recent start, and by most recent start right before the layoff last August, was not the most ideal ride, was a wide trip, again still closed ground. The overall visual suggested this horse is going to move forward, so coming back around. And then as far as the Mischievous one, they were looking for turf all along. That was the placement last year, then we ran out of turf racing, they had to get a race, just just getting the horse to start, ended up running on the dirt, wasn't the right spot. So I think both those horses, I prefer I'm box office, but if the Mischievous One is around that price, I'm not leaving that one out, especially with some knocks on the favorite.
And that's the thing about it with the Mischievous One. I mean, you see one race on the main track. You can kind of just throw that out when handicapping this race and almost start with a horse that's basically making its debut. Now you're 2 turns on the turf, and I think you'll get a decent price in there, so we'll see. Joyzella's a horse that may be able to step up a little bit. Vostra early on in its career looked like a decent racehorse and actually ran pretty good in that first start out of the meet. That one wouldn't surprise me if it steps up and runs a pretty good race as well. Patience Worth definitely, though, going to be the one to beat there in race 5. Race 6, $40,000 optional claiming allowance company. They go 1 mile and 70 yards in this spot. We're going to agree in here as well, and it's with the 2. Read the cliff notes. I think the horse needed that last out. It loves this Hawthorne track. I'm expecting much better today.
And I'm on board for all those same reasons, just getting that race under their belt off that wide trip. She had plenty of fitness, has intent today, and might not even be favored because, you know, if Notary ends up being favored, which it's a tough one for me because I really like Notary last out, and the horse just
ran okay.
just missed. Oh yeah, that was kind of a tough one at 11-1. So now it's coming back at a short price with the colder barn. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to try to get creative in here, but I think Read the Cliff Notes is in the right spot. Silver Quarters, I know a horse that you've been kind of chasing a little bit that's been running well, just kind of needs the right group, needs the right pace, maybe finds it here. And then I tried to get really creative with number 3, Sport Pepper, just as a horse that in terms of the class is going to be a lateral move on paper from that June 14th race, but in terms of the optics figure range, today is actually a drop, and I think that's what the horse needs.
Yeah, and it seems to be much better around 2 turns, probably shows a little bit of speed. They went really fast in that last out too in that sprint. WW Candy's actually entered in a similar spot at Horseshoe Indianapolis coming up next week, but that was a big figure that day, so that was a very tough race that Sport Pepper's coming out of. Race number 7, $40,000 optional company on the turf for this one. All 1 mile on the firm turf course. Take out the 2 plus Chic, but Michelle Boyce has the 5 Cat Attack in here as well. But again, you start with the Chris Block runners. He's got 2. My Lips Are Sealed and Cathan, and I think Cathan probably the one to beat in here. Ran a pretty good race at this level in that last out too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the direction I went. They were against the flow with that 2nd place finish, so still a very good, honest effort. And the same thing back at Keeneland on April 22nd was against the flow. So despite that 7th place finish and what it looks like on paper, it was still a very competitive race for this horse. Their numbers stack up and just has a little bit more foundation than My Lips Are Sealed.
I think you do have to give a little bit of consideration as well to the outside horse, the 7 Let's Cruise. This is a horse that ran in the Roma Caca Stakes here last summer. Almost held off Russian Mafia, who came just charging at him late. But Let's Cruise has kind of been waiting, trying to find that turf spot. And I think getting back on the grass, this is one that I think will probably step up a little bit on the turf as well.
I don't disagree, and has the benefit of that early speed. And as you mentioned earlier, that was holding yesterday, so having a fit horse with the speed holding. And today's a windy day, so we'll see how it changes today as well.
Yeah, we'll see how things unfold. Maybe catch a little bit of a price on that one. Then in the finale, we go 3/4 of a mile on the last $10,000 claimers. Field of 7 lines up in here to go with that 3/4 of a mile. And you and I are both kind of looking at prices. They're different horses, but I know you gave a little bit of a look to Go Storm and Girl, who turns back to the main track today.
Yeah, the race last out, that was a better than looked race.
Yes.
She had the buried turf form. I thought that was a very sneaky good effort, but her dirt form also stacks up. So the fact they're coming right back on 11 days, I have to give her a look right back. Lucy's Looking Left kind of seems like another more obvious type. It has to get a trip running on late. Getting a little bit of a freshening coming into this race, but certainly fits. And the same thing with Trip to Freedom, going out for Tanner Tracy, another live barn, just coming in back to this condition where they've run well, or back to this course where they've run well in the past. But kind of my main opinion in here was I was a little bit negative on She's Reckless just as the favorite. Just didn't think that the horse had that much of an edge over some of the others. That's why I kind of spread a little bit with that being my main opinion, that I was going to try to beat She's Reckless.
It is a spread type of race, and you talk about trainer intent. Tanner Tracy had a really good start to the meet here. Then he headed off to Prairie Meadows with horses. But like you mentioned, Trip to Freedom, 2 races at, or 1 race at Prairie, and the race wasn't good. The races at Hawthorne were good. So that's a horse that could definitely step up, run a much improved effort, and do so at a decent price in the finale. All right, that's how we see the 8 races here today. Again, sunny skies, fast main track, firm turf course. We're going to flip back and take a look at the field for race number 1 as we go 1 mile and 70 yards in the opener. $15,000 maidens in the first, and Emily, pick 5 wagering here. here. 6-5 favorite still is the 5-horse Izzy's Monster. So let's start by taking a look at that one and give us the rundown with Izzy's Monster.
Yeah, I think Izzy's Monster is a legitimate favorite in here. This will be their first start in at the $15,000 maiden claiming tag. Ran for the tag last out, but that was coming off the 22-day layoff on the turf sprint. Just from a physical standpoint, we can get a look at her right now. Looks kind of more like a router. And as far as that turf sprint, she had trouble at the start, had trouble in running, closed ground late. So a good effort despite that 5th place finish, beaten 7 lengths in order to take a step forward. And even the number on the main track here around 2 turns back in October stacks up on par.
And Cody Rosine does a very good job of placing his horses. He had horses at Oaklawn Park. He's got some horses up in Minnesota. He has some horses here. Everything seems to be put in a spot where they're given a shot to win. So the last start out, I agree with that. I didn't think it was too bad by any means. And now you drop a little bit into this spot here. Izzy's Monster is a horse that I have in the mix as well. A deserving favorite, currently sitting at 6-5. Now the 6-horse Pretty Imprado is the one I went to on top. This one at 7-2 on the board comes from the barn of trainer Michelle Boyce. Manuel Giles in the saddle today, and I really think, Emily, the only way this horse does win is if Pretty Imprado goes for the top. They didn't make the top in that last race on the turf, and then that was kind of the end of the day. This is a much easier spot. I guess the question is, can Pretty Imprado go out there and clear?
Yeah, that is the question, right? Because that's kind of been her hurdle, is that finishing ability late. But to her benefit, she kind of has that every other pattern. You go back to the race back on April 2nd where she ran a good race, maybe caught a little bit of a bias that day, and then backed up in the next start and then took another step forward, staying on as the best of the speed in that 3rd place finish. Still lacking a little bit of stick late, but you're getting some price compensation, a horse where their best run is, and they're likely to send, especially from this outside post that kind of puts them in the race.
Yeah, it definitely does. Now the 2 horses, Lil Carrie D. Lil Carrie D is 9-1 right now. Mike Slager jumped up, and we talked about Secret Operation yesterday, and that horse won at 12-1. So it's something where Lil Carrie D's run some decent races, but this is a barn that may be on to kind of going the right direction right now.
Yeah, and this is the horse I gave a look to at a price because I think she has some varied form and some numbers that make her competitive. As far as the distance, going way back to the beginning of her career, she looked like a horse that just needed more ground. And then as far as her races last season and even the first part of this year, she was running at the Maiden Special Weight Company, so just a little bit overmatched in those races. She ran at this condition on May 14th, wasn't an ideal trip, was wide chasing throughout, up close to a fast pace. So that race back on May 14th is actually an upgrade. And then coming back from the turf race on June 4th was not an ideal ride. I mean, that running line is just a mess, was unable to get into the race, was completely wrapped up. The rider just had that horse on hold throughout. So taking that running line with a grain of salt, getting back to a better effort, has this horse competitive and seems like, kind of like the runner yesterday, Secret Operation, just in the right spot for their abilities.
Yeah, it could be in the right spot for sure. And then let's take a look at the 4, Bunny Shine, because the horse is taking some action here. 7-2 on the board, Alexis Centeno aboard for trainer Joel Campbell. Pretty well bred 3-year-old filly. This is an Illinois bred. They claimed for $62.50 in the last out. I think it was probably a little bit of a disappointing effort on debut, but it wouldn't surprise me if this horse steps up and runs fairly well today also.
Yeah, the last out, they broke a little bit slow, kind of had to rush wide to get into the race before losing ground, chasing the kind of pace-setting chalk winner that day. So it could be a horse that's forwardly placed up there with Pretty Imprado, but making some changes in here could certainly have room to improve. I don't think there's any risk stepping this horse up in class, right? Especially when you claim for $62.50 last out to run here for 15, nothing to lose. And we'll just, we'll see. Certainly a second-time starter that could show a little bit more. And then we should probably touch on the 2 Weir horses just because they're worth a little bit. Number 1, Holy Star, is going to wheel back in just a week. And from that race, I know it was another one at the $62.50 level just a week ago, but it was a horse I remember mentioning to you had took action before drifting up a little bit and turned in a good effort, all things considered. And they're going to be joined by the stablemate number 3, She Appeals Holy, which is a little bit tougher to take coming off that long 644-day layoff.
It is a long layoff. They're heading out here for the opener. Pick 5 wagering in the first. Good luck.
Coming on the track for the Thursday opener, they'll go 1 mile and 70 yards on a fast track. We have a field of 6. There are no changes. Win, play, show, exacta, trifecta, superfecta. This race starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick 3s, and the 50-cent pick 5. 5 minutes till post, 5 minutes. Dirt track fast, turf is firm, rail set at 10 feet out on the grass course. Parading, here they are, 1 Holy Star, Alexander Bendezu riding. 2 is Little Carrie D with Diego Sanchez aboard. 3, She Appeals Holy, Rashawn Blanche. Number 4, Bunny Shine, Alexis Centeno riding. 5, Izzy's Monster, Victor Santiago aboard. And 6, Pretty and Prado, Emmanuel Giles will bring her to the gate. They'll all be there in just about 4 minutes for the Thursday opener. Here once again are the changes in your pick 5 races. No changes in race 1. Second race, turf firm rail set at 10 feet out, no changes. Third race starts the pick 6, carryover $1,052. That's the only carryover pool today. In the third race, 1 Magna Massa carries 2 pounds over. 5 Specializing carries 1 pound over the program weight. No changes in the fourth. Fifth race, scratch number 2, Dreamfly, scratch 2, Dreamfly. Turf firm, track is fast. 4 minutes to post for the first. At Hawthorne, we do urge you in all cases to make your selections early. Avoid being shut out. Racing fans, a little time remains for the wager on today's first race here at Hawthorne. This race starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick threes, the 50-cent pick five. Dirt track is fast, turf is firm, rail set at 10 feet out on the turf course. We have 8 races today, 1 carryover pool. The third race has a pick 6 carryover of $1,052. No jackpot high five wagering today on race 8. We'll have a carryover pool on Sunday's card here of $124,576. We do thank you for joining us wherever you may be across the betting network. Another warm day here in the Chicagoland area. Tailwind in the home stretch of about 10 to 15 miles per hour. Still have those hazy skies. We're getting ready to start the Thursday program. We are close to starting time for race 1. Moving towards the gate, less than a minute. Racing fans are at the starting gate for today's first race here at Hawthorne. First of 8 horses are entering the starting gate, going 1 mile and 70 yards on a fast track. Turf course is firm today. They're loading up for the first at Hawthorne. Last 2 to go in, She Appeals Holy and Pretty in Prado. Waiting for Pretty in Prado. She's in. They're all in the gate. They're off. Holy Star going for the lead. Lil Carrie D came away well. Moving up on the outside, Pretty in Prado. Izzy's Monster 4th. Bunny Shine 5th. And a long gap to the trailer as they move around the first turn. She Appeals Holy. And they move on to the backstretch. Holy Star leads by 2. Lil Carrie D racing a bit wide on the outside there, second. Bunny Shine along the rail, third. Pretty in Prado, fourth, about 4 lengths from the leaders. And then it's Izzy's Monster, and then a 7-length gap to the trailer. She Appeals Holy, 24.33 for the opening quarter. They've got just about 5 furlongs to go, and Lil Carrie D from the outside takes the lead, draws clear a length and a half. Holy Star trying to re-rally along the rail between horses. Bunny Shine. Pretty in Prado out there in 4th. And then Izzy's Monster moving to the outside 5th. A long gap to She Appeals Holy. Lil Carrie D has been wide throughout. She's 3-4 wide around the turn, but has the lead. Holy Star coming back down along the rail. Then moving into third is a sharp Izzy Star. Now she's splitting horses. Coming on third, now splitting horses second. Coming on for the lead as Lil Carrie D is losing ground on the turn. Around the turn, they're in the stretch. Izzy's Monster comes off the turn with the lead. Holy Star trying to fight back down along the rail. Lil Carrie D still wide, but in third. And then in 4th is Bunny Shine. Followed up by Pretty in Prado. And trailing She Appeals Holy inside the final furlong. Izzy's Monster in full command. Holy Star second. Lil Carrie D third. Coming to the wire. Izzy's Monster in front. Holy Star did well to be second. Lil Carrie D third. And then Bunny Shine finished 4th. In today's first race, 5 Izzy's Monster finished first. 1 Holy Star was second. 2 Lil Carey